It's now the new year, and I'm so excited to really focus on growth, like really exponential growth. And I think it's going to come down to really different ways that people are marketing online. You're the five-star guy. Let's talk about marketing in general. Let's start by telling people how you and I met.
Okay. So I believe, I've seen your name here and there on different places that we've hung out. I was on a Gary V Spreecast, I believe, and you got the privilege to get some airtime with him, and you said a couple of things. You had your studio all set up, and I kind of thought, who is this guy? So I reached out to you. I think I tweeted you or something like that, and then we just started an engagement digitally with Twitter and Facebook and conversations, emails, and now here we are.
Yeah, and I think that's what I want to talk about today. Something a little bit different in the marketing space. We can get psychological, we can go down a bunch of rabbit holes, but it comes down to connections. I've been following Gary for forever, and if I have the time, I'm on his webinars, and it's been like that forever. So I saw you on there as well. I liked what you had to say. So when I checked out your website, I was like, obviously this guy knows what he's doing. He's got a great looking website. Tweeted you, we connected, and now we're here today talking for the first time. And that's really why I created the podcast, because I love meeting like-minded people like you. Obviously, you're an overachiever. You're doing great things with branding and new projects that you have coming out. And what I like about you is like you're almost the exact opposite than me. And I can tell that you have the same personality almost as Gary V. You're very extroverted. You put yourself out there. And not only that you're focused on branding. What you talk about, everything you do in your experience is all about branding. And I'm focused on conversions. So it's almost the exact opposite.
Right.
This is the Marketing Optimization Podcast, but I'm not really even a marketer. I created it to learn about marketing. And I think in 2014, we're going to see a lot of this. And I want to talk about three things in particular: creating online communities, advertising, and partnerships. So tell me a little bit, what do you see in 2014 about creating engagement in online communities online?
Well, I've said several times that 2014 is the year of the human, which kind of sounds really weird, but we've had this kind of evolution in humanity where technology has been like, wow. I mean, back in the 60s when Star Trek came out and we started watching Star Trek and then we started watching Star Wars, we had all these sci-fi movies where people were holding computers in their hands and they were asking the computer, hey, computer, how far is it to get to this place? We were all kind of like, whoa, that'll never happen. And then from, 1990 to 2013, we've seen a vast majority, almost everything but, space travel for the average person and teleportation, we've pretty much gotten, from that Star Trek era. And we've been enamored with it. We've been like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Now we're kind of in this stage of development as a human society where we're saying, oh yeah, of course, drones are going to drop my package at my front door. Like, duh. Of course my toothbrush or my pants, as Gary always says, are going to tell me things. Duh. And so our human curiosity is actually shifting from technology, and we're now going back to like this weird thing called communication, this weird thing called talking, this weird thing called human touch. Podcasts are coming back because radio is an intricate part of human development and storytelling, and podcast is kind of the new way of utilizing the technology but with an old tradition. So 2014 is really companies that understand, and I don't mean like you said, like I'm not going to go into the psychology even though we could, that's a rabbit hole, but people that really understand the whole philosophy of caring and really getting it out there in their branding and their advertising and their strategies are really going to win. I have a big pet peeve when people say that they're marketers, and I'm not going after you. There are very few people that are actually marketers. I mean, the definition of marketing or a marketing expert is not somebody who creates fancy ads and makes things look cool. They are people who understand scientific data that they've gathered, and then they manipulate that data and they direct people into taking action, converting, doing different things. through advertising, through social media, through web, whatever it is. But there are very few marketers in this world that are really, really good, because very few people want to take the time to really go in and look at human development, human cycles, where are things going, and you don't have the budget. I mean, a good marketing campaign, which means, going in and really analyzing everything, it's going to cost you, six figures, 300,000 plus. And not a lot of businesses have time for that, because you get the research and then the marketplace shifts. But there's tricks, and we can go into it if we want to know about that. But that's kind of in a really, generic way of saying where I think we're going.
Yeah, I think online, it really doesn't come down to what tool you use. You can use Facebook, you can use Google+, you can use Twitter. You have to be engaging, and that relationship of engagement and being human is really branding these days. And when brands are doing it with their customers, or service businesses are doing it with their clients, or helping just random people, you're going out of your way. That's the new way of branding yourself and getting to that word of mouth type of marketing.
It is, and it's so simple, and even when it comes out of my mouth, I'm like, what? Like, this is so simple. Why are we even talking about this? But it's simple, yet nobody's really doing it. I shouldn't say nobody. Very few people are actually doing it, because it takes put in the word there, work. I mean, it takes an immense amount of work. You don't just do this. There's no automation to humanity. There really isn't. People try to say, oh, there's this, there's that, but there's really not a workaround to being human. You have to just put the time in, the energy in. You have to be, engaged. You have to be able to be engaged. You have to be able to be accessible. You have to, all these different things. There is scalability to it, but it's not, it's not as simple as like Hootsuite, where it's like, let me type in all my tweets and all my Facebook stuff. Done. I'm done for the week. Now I'm gone. That doesn't work. And this whole thing with Facebook right now of them, making it so only 2% of your people see you. I love that. I'm like, thank you. Finally, that we're taking over. Facebook is. I think they're going to change it. I think that in a couple of months they're going to, build that back up. But I think that it's a bold move on their part to really get rid of, this idea of just, putting crap out there and expecting results from that. So anyway, don't want to tangent.
Yeah, well, I think you hit a good point there, because I think that's why I really connected with you, because there is a big difference between the people who kind of get it and the people who are just still in push marketing the mindset. Because if you're willing to put yourself out there and go and help people, jab, 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 then eventually it's going to come back to you tenfold.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons that I resonated with Gary is that, he's got his own personality. I suck on video. I don't like myself on video. It's like, video. He's really good at video. That's what he loves to do. That's his thing. I've been saying and resonating with the ideas of what he's saying now since really, late 2004, when I went through the .com bubble and had all these great projects that were going to make me billions of dollars, and we spent millions of dollars, and it failed epically, And so in 2004, when this was all kind of becoming cool again, I started looking at it and saying, what failed from the web was obviously people weren't ready to buy dog food or shoes online, but it was impersonal, and the world was really personal in, the late 90s, early 2000s. We kind of forget we think that was such a long time ago, and it really wasn't. And we've lost that. And like I said, that's why I feel like 2014, we're really going to kind of start getting back to that. And there's a secret weapon that all advertisers, small companies, branders can use that I don't think a lot of people even know what they are anymore. So but it's a secret weapon. So.
Well, I heard you say something on one of the other podcasts that I really liked you hearing. It was money does grow on trees, but you got to know where to find the trees, how to use them, and what to do with them. Yeah, and I think that's what advertising, point number 2 that I want to talk about, is all about. Because people are so worried about those unknowns. They see everyone making a lot of money, but they don't know where to spend their time or their money correctly. So what do you see in the future of advertising and really creating that human?
So advertising to date has been very intrusive. Again, you go back into the evolution of advertising. It's always been intrusive, but it's been less intrusive because of what we know. Knowledge breeds intrusiveness. Watching a commercial in 1980 was cool because it was like, oh, I'm watching this television. There's this commercial. It's kind of fun. I like that brand, whatever. Now we think the same types of commercials are intrusive because we can hit the fast forward button and it's like, why are you showing me this? Pop-ups on websites. So those were cool in 1996 because it was like, whoa, cool. Somebody knows I'm on their site. Like, here's this thing. Now those are intrusive, and it just continues and continues. But advertising now it cannot feel like advertising. The traditional forms of advertising, like I love ESPN to death, but I hate going to their website, and especially on a mobile experience. I'll go to their website and some ad will pop up. And I'll tell you right now, there are certain companies that have really been pushy with ESPN, and I won't buy their products. I'm not going to name their names because it's so intrusive to me. It puts such a bad taste in my mouth personally that I'm kind of like, look, I'm just trying to do something on this device. Leave me alone, and you're trying to sell me something. And so it's about, finding that. And all advertisers have the same problem. What's not intrusive? What do I do? Mm-hmm. And I just come back and I say, create value. Give value, share stories, be human, find ways to share your message without it being so pushy or so pulley. Just do it in a way that just resonates on a human level. And there are companies that do it really, really well, and there are companies that do it very, very poorly. And some companies have it easier than others. I mean, Victoria's Secret, for example, always gets talked about how their ads are so cool and their ads are so this and that, and there's so much engagement and da-da-da. And it's like, well, duh. Look at what they're advertising. It's not like they're advertising, a watch, or they're not, they're advertising, a drink or something else. But there's a lot to be said about the form of advertising that they're utilizing. They know their target audience, which is not men. We all know that. They know their target audience, and they speak very well to that target audience. That doesn't mean that just because you're marketing a toothbrush or a pair of pants or, a web service or whatever else, you can't do the same thing. I was just at an event this morning where a guy was talking about an app, and it was targeted to women, and it was targeted to housewives, and it was targeted to, people who make $80,000 or above, homeowners. And he was telling us all his marketing strategies, and he came up with this little campaign where it was like an elf, and he did this on Facebook, and he did all this stuff, and it was cute, right? Well, the people that were in the audience got to do Q&A at the end, and everyone was kind of like, oh, I didn't really resonate with I thought it was cute, but, it didn't make me take action. Yeah. Well, then at the very, very end, he told his story as to why he created the app. And the entire audience, I wish I could have video. The entire audience was like, oh, yeah, I resonate. I want that. And I, at this point, raised my hand, and I was in the back on a panel, and I said, dude, right there is your advertising. Right. That's your ad. That's what you do. Record in the bathroom mirror what you just said with a camera over your shoulder, and then go have that, do whatever you got to do, and professionally figure something out that you can resonate that story. But that's your advertising. Yeah. And so it's a long answer, but we have to be unintrusive as much as we possibly can. And when we intrude, we've got to be human about it, and we've got to find ways to really share that story. And there's ways to do it. There are ways, I look at the podcast world and I'm like, look, does every podcaster have to start off their podcast with a jingle and a thing, and then thank you to my sponsor, Bluehost or whatever it is? And how many people are just fast forwarding to marker 3, minute 3, because they know that the first 3 minutes is crap that doesn't bring them any value? Mm-hmm. So how do you inlay your ads within, your pitch? There's so many things, but anyway.
Well, I think it's a good point that I've heard you talk about too. What is that ROI? It's really the return on impressions, and how you can really make a difference of that connection and being human and become engaging. But I think Victoria's Secret is a great example of other things you've said of losing control of your brand. Having it basically create an animal of its own, and it just goes out there, and it's people are sharing the stuff without them asking for it, and it's a big difference maker in order to get that exponential growth that people are looking for. How can you create a lot of great content and then get people to share it without you asking for it?
And I love this because you're listening, to things that I'm saying, so that's great. And a lot of people, they love the thing I say, money does grow on trees. And, I'm sure you'll give some backstory. I have a right to say that because I believe that, too much emphasis is put on the bottom line. How much money am I going to make? How many conversions am I going to get? And I know you do converting, and I'm not downing that. I'm just saying there's a lot of emphasis that's put on that. And there's not enough infinite, wow, anyway, we're skipping that word, put onto what's the value that I'm giving. And return on impression is it's not some revolutionary thing, but it's something that people don't think about. For example, 3 days ago, I've gotten like 9 Google Glass invites, right, over the last 2 years. And I've always just kind of been like, Google Glass, like, I'm not going to feel like a freaking cybo robot walking down the street. But on this 9th one, I'm like, it's Christmas. Maybe I'll take a look at Google Glass. And so I tweeted to people that I knew that had Google Glass, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about getting Google Glass. What do you think? Now, some crazy things happened. I got people that I didn't know were tweeting me pictures of themselves, because I think I said something like, and I don't remember exactly, but I think I said something like, am I going to look like a dork wearing these glasses, or am I going to look like Geordi from Star Trek? Like, should I do this? And I got 3 or 4 people that sent me pictures of them wearing Google Glass, like, and saying things like, you'll look hot, or, they're cool. And then I had dialogue with people who actually were saying things, positive and negative about Google Glass. Then I got answers to questions that I didn't know. Like, for example, if you're a first-gen user, you get the second-gen for free. And I just got all this information. The point is that it was 40, 50 tweets back and forth, engaging with people that I had known, didn't know, brought them in, impressions for Google Glass, impressions for me. I decided, let's do this. I'm going tomorrow to get, fitted for the Google Glass thing, whatever. And so Google Glass won, I won, and the end of the story is now these people, they engaged back to me. Right. They gave me value. I gave them a little bit of value by just giving them some attention. Attention is value too. We don't forget, like, just having a conversation with somebody can be value. So, well, here's the fun part of this is I ended up meeting somebody who's in the programming world, who I shared one of my new projects coming up, which is called Amantora, and I showed him that project. He then said, this is freaking awesome. He private messaged me and said, hey, I really want to get involved in this project. We have had a conversation. He has connections in the industry that I need some connections in. And lo and behold, this is now going to be a very profitable thing for me and a profitable relationship for me. Yeah. So what's the ROI, financially? I don't know yet. Yeah. What's the ROI as far as the impression? Massive. What's the value that I was able to give and the users were able to give me? Epic. So not enough attention. And that's just a really small micro, personal brand story. It's not like something for Victoria's Secret or whatever. And I do want to make, go to the point you said, but the value of humanity, and I have a thing that I work with all my clients, the humanistic social influence. What are you influencing? How are you being human, and how are you, utilizing the society around you to grow your business? I'm not Mother Teresa. I'm not pretending to stand on this thing. I mean, I get it. We all have to make money. But how you make money is so crucial. Yeah. And what you said about brand is the secret. Getting the brand uncontrolled is where that's where you'll start making some serious money.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I created this into the 3 steps, and the third one we'll talk about is, starting with that foundation of building your tribe, having a community that you can go to, because you have to have that foundation and that audience in order to actually, write a blog post, have a podcast. You have to have a foundation. You have to be engaging with the community in order to get stuff back. Once you're actually engaging, you have a product to actually sell, you start advertising, whether it's just, you're bootstrapping and you're buying AdWords, or you're spending money on Facebook, you're advertising in some way. And really the third way, which I think is the best way to get a lot of growth, is through partnerships. And I think podcasting is really all about partnerships. You want to interview the best people in the industry. I want to interview you. You're obviously great in branding, and finding those partnerships that you can really leverage is a great way to really grow in 2014.
It is. And partnerships are I did a YouTube video back when I did YouTube videos about small businesses finding alliance partners. Because here's the thing. Partnership is kind of that word that it's either a negative or a positive, but most of the time it honestly turns into a negative situation. Somebody feels taken advantage of, somebody feels like they've given more than they've gotten, blah, blah, blah. And so what I always say is just add another word to it, and it's an alliance partnership. The alliance part is where you ensure that there is, that there's synergy and there's value in both ways. Small example. Let's say you're a designer, you're a very good designer, you're a bottle designer. Let's really narrow this down. You design amazing bottle packaging and amazing, shapes and sizes and all that fun stuff. Yet your biggest problem is that once you do a design, you've got your iPhone and, maybe some Canon Rebel camera, but you can't really capture the essence of your bottles. And you know that if you could just capture the essence of your bottles in a better way, you could, explode your business. You have more time, you have all these things. So you meet somebody at a networking event and they're starting a photography business and they're trying to get off the ground. There's your perfect opportunity. Your first thought, everybody's first thought is, I can't afford that, or I'm not ready for that, or I don't, blah, blah, blah. Well, get rid of that. Go into a mode of, what value could I give this person, and what value could they give me, and how could we grow together, blah, blah, blah. Well, that takes being human, that takes being honest, that takes being legit, ethical, all those things. So go to this photographer, you look at it, and the photographer says, I'm trying to do this design for my website, and I'm just having a really hard time, and I really want something fresh and cool. And you say something, this is the old barter system, right? So you say, hey, I'll help you design, could you help me take some photography? Now, maybe you don't want to help the design, but so now leverage something else that's just as valuable, and that is network and connections. Mm-hmm. The bottle designer has a whole different network than this photographer does, because who are they designing bottles for? Let's say wine companies. Well, what else do wine companies need? They don't just need bottles, but maybe they need some photography of their vineyards, of their buildings, of their this, of their that. Sure. And you, as the bottle designer, have created a relationship with this person that your friend over here, Mr. or Mrs. Photographer, doesn't have. So just by simply saying, look, I'm doing this wine bottle project for this vineyard, and their photography online is horrible, and I've got a really good relationship with the owner, I could probably make an introduction for you, and you could see if there's anything you could do for him. And better yet, if we could come up with something where you took pictures of my stuff, I could actually put that in my book of services of being able to offer this to my clients. Now you're not bartering anything other than your network. The bottle guy has spent all this time building his network. The photographer needs a network to grow their business. Now, flip side, photographer has a network you don't have. So that now becomes a simple alliance, and you're not, quote unquote, just saying, oh, we're a partnership or we're this. Same thing with the podcasting world. You're on my podcast. I'd love, I'm on your podcast. I'd love to bring you on my podcast, share expertise. Then what? Now it's like, well, if my audience is bigger than your audience, then, you get more people or vice versa or whatever. What's the real value? How are we really aligning ourselves so that you feel like, holy crap? And it could be something as simple as just, a tweet or this or that. I mean, don't overcomplicate it, but add the word alliance in front of it.
That's a really great point. And I think it's really the mindset when, not being selfish about it, going out of your way as much as possible to help others, and eventually you're going to get that in return. And that's really what I think it comes down to. After you've learned all this about building your community, advertising, and creating those partnerships, is sharing that knowledge with everybody. And I think that is my bonus tip, is teaching. You're not creating a blog post really for yourself. You're not creating a podcast for yourself. But what can I learn from Wes that can teach everybody else? And I think you're doing that great. And I think it's going to be an unbelievable year for you with the stuff that you have coming out. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you're going to teach the world about your story with your books coming out?
Yeah, so let me add a little to that, and then I'll get to there. It's so funny to me that I've been in sales for a long time, because any entrepreneur is a salesman, and everybody always says that sales is about showing or selling or convincing, and what it's not. And this is nothing new to anybody who's studied selling. Selling, the biggest secret is educating. If you educate and you show and you give examples and you bring your knowledge to the table, all of a sudden people respect you and they want to work with you. Well, that's no different than if you're, say, a web service company or you're a photographer or whatever. If you're educating the marketplace through blogs, Facebook posts, YouTube videos, whatever, look at Pat Flynn, right? Like Pat Flynn is a really good example of just like giving you so much. I remember when I was like, podcast, what the heck's that? I'm going to be on radio. What's this podcast thing? And I went and watched Pat Flynn's 3-part video on how to do a podcast. And now I never knew Pat Flynn. I didn't know he existed. I was not in that world. But now I'm like, man, this Pat Flynn guy, look at all this information he gave me. I trust him. If he's in my circle, la da 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 da. So same thing with Gary Vaynerchuk. I mean, they're giving you all of this education and all of this knowledge, and now you trust them, and then that leads to a sale, and then that increases the bottom line, and then your conversions go up, and yada yada yada. So it is a mindset, and it's really tough. I mean, I've consulted some of the biggest brands in the world, and I hate it because it's such a bureaucracy to get a mindset. A solo entrepreneur or an entrepreneur that has 30, 40 employees, whatever, getting to the head of the snake, if you would, and getting the mindset of the head of the snake, the body will follow. Well, in big corporations, their biggest problem is they have like 90 heads, right? And they're all trying to control one body. And it's very difficult to get them all to have that mindset. So I think you nailed it. That is the key. So for me, what I'm doing is I have a very interesting past. I have a very interesting story, like we all do. But I feel that my story is in a position now where I can actually kind of take it to the next level through some of these strategies and techniques and some of the things that are out there as far as Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and blah, blah, blah. But I also understand the importance of the traditional things like radio and television and books and all those kinds of things. So I'm in the process of writing, I'm almost done writing my book, which is my story of the first 13 years. My first book's only going to be the first 13 years. Otherwise, you guys would have a 700-page book. But it's going to be about my journey from being abandoned at the age of 6, having to figure out my own way at the age of 8, and becoming self-sufficient by 16, and having a bunch of different things happen, and lessons and learning experiences. So I'm excited. I legitimately, kind of about 3 years ago, got an itch for learning about this self-development, marketing strategy, people like the Frank Kerns and the Brendan Burchards and the Amy Porterfields and, Maria Smith and all this stuff, and Gary Vaynerchuk, all these guys that are out there just speaking, giving knowledge. And those names that I named, a lot of them are great people, but there's others out there that aren't necessarily great people. But more importantly, they're talking heads. They don't have a lot of experience. And that's a big pet peeve for me. And I've been an entrepreneur for 22 years, and it's funny because everyone asks me, what's your secret weapon? I say the things like money grows on trees, and people say, what's your secret weapon? And I say, it's very simple. I knock doors. I'll never stop knocking doors. Whether that's a tweet, whether that's a podcast, whether that's an interview, whether that's a Facebook status, or whether that's legitimately knocking a door, I won't stop knocking doors. And I have a PR company, but I'm still knocking down doors. I'm sending emails to big names that I want to be on, and I'm knocking those doors because that's what gets attention. So I got a lot of things going on, and at the same time, I'm trying to give value. I'm trying to give people some of this expertise and run a business. So It's no small task. But I'm not about millions. I'm about hundreds. I'm actually about one. You and I created a relationship on Twitter. We transferred that to Facebook. We transferred that to email. And now we're on podcast. And now we're probably going to transfer that to when I'm in your area, you're in my area. We're going to go get a coffee, a beer, whatever. And we're going to continue to grow that relationship. Your podcast takes off and becomes the #1 podcast listened to on iTunes. And you and I are buddies. I'm not an idiot. That's going to benefit me. That's going to help me. Vice versa. Something happens big for me, and I'm able to bring you into my circle. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We're trying to make money here. We're all trying to survive, but do it in a way that's human. And like I said, it's going to be cool to be human in 2014. It's going to be normal in 2015. And it's just simply because we get it. Like, we're going to teleport to Mars. It's just a matter of when, It's not cool anymore to talk about technology. It's not cool to talk about landing pages anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just, we all get it. Like my 8-year-old daughter can build a landing page on Unbounce, like there's no coolness to that anymore. It doesn't mean it's not important. I'm just saying, like, What's cool now is people that are actually taking time and are actually communicating and are actually talking. And I mentioned what the secret weapon is. The secret weapon is this, in any form, is the phone. The lighting in here sucks, but, it's the phone. Pick up the phone and talk to people. Pick up the phone and go back to old, techniques of selling. I mean, that's the secret weapon. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it's the biggest takeaway I think that people need to, keep in the back of their minds is that people want to buy from people, especially in B2B. When people want to buy my services or work with my team, they want to work with me because I'm bringing that experience. And if I'm not transparent about all the stuff I have going on or, my videos, then my clients don't trust me. And I love working with great people, and those people want to work with you. So if you can be human, then you're really going to get that growth in 2014.
Well, and let's not forget, B2C is the same way.
Yeah.
There's a psychology of nonprofit, and I love nonprofit for everything that they do. It takes a special type of person to want to be a part of a nonprofit. You want to talk about work, that's work. You want to talk about work with very little reward, then go do a nonprofit. Nonprofits are very difficult. Well, I don't know the date that it happened, but at some point in the evolution of advertising, somebody said, hey, we have this product, this Coke or this, Pepsi or whatever, this drink, let's not name names, and we need to be more human. We need to have people trust us. We need to be more of the people, and somebody somewhere said, let's team up with a nonprofit because nothing humanizes you more than helping somebody else, right? And so that, let's not kid ourselves, is that B2C is just as critically in need of that human interaction. But again, let's go to the nonprofits. Now it's kind of like, if you don't support a nonprofit, then what's wrong with you? It's not cool. Marketers, advertisers ruin everything. So B2C still needs that human feel, which means that companies have to get off of this high horse mentality of skyscrapers, MBAs, suit and tie type feel. They need to come down and not be of the people anymore. The nonprofits were of the people because it's kind of like, okay, you now need to be with the people. And that's why we love these shows like Secret Millionaire and, My Undercover Boss and stuff like that, because we do. Everybody puts, a CEO. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, you hate the word CEO. What you love is the word founder, And there's a psychology to that because CEOs are these guys that sit up in the top of the skyscrapers and, demand things and don't care about anybody. And businesses have done that to themselves. And so now if you have a B2C product, you have to figure out a way to authentically, very organically, transparently, honestly come down and be with the people. And it sounds so like, I'm not Oprah. I'm not like trying to, sell you on, some self-help course. I'm telling you that your brand has to give those things, or else you're not going to have conversions. You're not.
Yeah, it's about being relevant. You're connecting in a mindset with the brand or the service or whatever you're buying. It needs to really be relevant. Well, Wes, I really appreciate your time. Let's close by telling people how they can find out more about you.
So, it's easy. I'm on all the social platforms. We've talked about that, obviously. But just go to wesleydchapman.com. It's Wesley, D as in Dwayne, Chapman.com. And everything is sitting there. I legitimately mean this. Like, if you tweet me, if you have a question, if you want to set up, a call, whatever, I'm incredibly busy, but I'm always finding time to answer questions and do what I can. I know the evolution of scalability. Right now I'm doing these one-on-one calls, but I know that we're probably going to have to switch that to Google Hangouts and Spreecast and things like that. But, it legitimately, go to wesleydchapman.com. Let's connect. I want to know your story. How can I help you? My hope is that the book will we'll be doing some pre-orders here right after Christmas. So my hope is that you do take a chance and look at the book and, do some pre-ordering stuff. I want to grow my message, but legitimately, I want to help small business owners figure out how to do this in the, and it's not just about 2014. It's just cool to talk about 2014 because it's, weeks away. But, how, if somebody's watching this in the middle of 2014, how can you make adjustments to tomorrow? Because a lot of these things that I can show people, you can literally implement in your business the next day and start seeing results.
Yeah, you're going to see everything move even quicker. I mean, people, news doesn't last very long anymore. The same thing in marketing. If you're not fixing your marketing within the next, hour, 2 hours, 24 hours, you're missing the boat, because you can really make a lot of changes really, really quickly.
Exactly.
Thanks, Wes. I really appreciate your time today.
Hey, I appreciate your time. Sorry about the background not being perfectly lit, but hopefully the message got across.
Excellent. We'll definitely check out the book. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, man.